Hey folks, welcome to this episode of Urban Hunting TV. We're glad that you joined us, and I'm here with Scott Davis. Scott, man, good to be here.
Hey Gary, I'm glad you're with us today, co-hosting this episode. We're going to be talking turkey this week. You know, I went with Ray who is in the Outdoor Hall of Fame, Legends of the Outdoors Hall of Fame, to his annual media camp back in the spring. And he always brings out a number of outdoor riders to a place in Licking, Missouri. And I had not hunted turkeys in the Ozarks, but man, it is a phenomenally beautiful place.
Well, you know, I've actually been over there and hunted with Alex Rutledge a time or two in the Ozarks and out of Birch Tree, Missouri, and that is a beautiful place. Lots of area over there to hunt too, hills and hollers.
Yes, it was hills and hollers. There's a big bluff there as you come into this particular camp, and you can see out over it, and it's just beautiful country. But one of the things I was really amazed at, you know, I hunt here in Tennessee all the time for turkeys, but to hear how many gobblers at the break of day, just to hear, I mean, I heard one morning, I heard like 10 that I could count. I was like, wow, there's turkeys everywhere, you know.
Yeah, and then after Alex and I went over there, we fished on the Current River as well for those smallmouth, and you know, you could hear them turkeys all over them hills, and I said, Alex, look, you know, we got a turkey hunt the next morning. So I know Ray is really good at it, and he's a legend over there in that part of the country. So I'm anxious to hear about what y'all did over there.
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you about a few members in camp. We had Linda Powell from Mossberg was in camp, and she had the new Mossberg shotguns out, a new line, and they have one shotgun in particular, the 835, that shoots a 3.5-inch shell, and since Spectre Shot had come out with the 3.5-inch shells this year, I had not tested them yet, so it gave me an opportunity to test them. And man, with the Indian Creek Shooting Systems choke tubes, that I call it the trifecta of turkey hunting. You got Spectre Shot with a 3.5-inch load, Mossberg with that 835 pump that'll shoot up to 3.5-inch Magnum loads, and then with Indian Creek Shooting Systems choke tubes, shoots great patterns down range, and that's what you want when you're hunting. You want to be able to acquire the target, be able to stay on target, easy trigger pull, and harvest the animal. And so that was some of the people that were in camp. We also had a gentleman by the name of Spence Turner, and Spence was key in the restoration of rainbow trout and brown trout in the Missouri area. He had moved there years ago when he first got out of grad school and just really worked with restocking, getting the fishery started and all that, and he's an outdoor writer as well. But he had a great hunt this year.
Well, I can't wait to see it, and I know you guys had a great time filming it, and I've heard some of the stories, so let's go to the film.
We started out at the blind in the north field, and although there was at least 3, maybe 4 birds that were talking this morning, it just did not, they responded maybe once.
Yeah, maybe once, and they were across the river.
Yeah.
A couple of them.
That was it. We finally gave up about 7:30, I think it was.
Yeah.
And wrapped up Bubba in a bunch of camo and burlap, which I carried with me. And first we started on the graveyard. We didn't have any response there at all. And then we went over and tried the backside next to the river, and no response there. We tried 2 different spots there. At a last resort, pulled up top of the hill where the trail going off an old wagon wheel. Pulled in there and set up. Stewart called. Damned if we didn't have an answer. And he called and he had another answer. Put out a decoy, which turned out to be no use at all.
Worthless.
And my fear was they'd come in right at the side they came in, because I'd had to shoot across Stewart, and that's what they did. Bottom line was that he called them in. Just, you know, you read about stories, you read about how it's done, supposed to be done, and most of the time, like my previous hunts have been semi-ambush and what have you. This one was the whole enchilada. They came in. I finally, you know, Stewart said he could hear drumming, which I couldn't hear, and then saw this white head come up. He looked around. Should I do the? Anyway, he looked around, and then he focused right on us, and I thought, uh-oh, that's it. Bang, and he hit the ground. You know, about a 40-yard shot with turkey choke from Indian Creek, which is an awesome rig. Spectre Shot. He didn't even flop. In In fact, a little worried that I missed, and so was Stuart.
Yeah, actually, yeah. He was stone cold dead, laying on the side behind a tree. I didn't even know he was there.
And then we took a bunch of pictures, and the shaking started. We're still shaking from it. It's the classic where the way you read about it being done. It was an awesome experience. You don't always have the opportunity to have the whole thing come together at one time. You know, they answer you and come wandering by, or they accidentally come by and get shot, or all the other things that happen to turkey hunters. This was the full story. Called, came in, had two buddies with him. This was the boss bird, and stuck his head up at the wrong time, and Elvis left the room.
Folks, right here is another one of our sponsors, the Gobbler Gauge. The Gobbler Gauge is a neat little tool. It's kind of like Spectre Shot. Instead of telling lies, you can actually show what's going on. And so the Gobbler Gauge measures the spurs as well as the beard. And what you do is you just push it in, detent it, and it measures 3/4 of an inch is the spur. So this is about a 2.5-year-old bird. You just take the Gobbler Gauge, depress it, and it gives you an exact measurement on every bird.
Gobbler Gauge, designed to score your trophy in the field. Fast, accurate measurement. Get yours at all fine retailers or gobblergauge.com.
On the beard, we get the turkey, and the cap opens on the Gobbler Gauge. It pops open and the tape comes out. Hold the tape at the base of the beard, and then run the beard out over the tape, and this bird has a 7.5-inch beard. You get your measurements in the field, and then it just folds right back up and closes right back up in the Gobbler Gauge.
Hey folks, glad you're back. Scott, I want you to tell me a little bit about the great hunt you had a few weeks after you'd been up with Ray I, been with Spence. You come back to Tennessee, to Cannon County, and you had a wonderful hunt here on a big Tennessee bird with a young man. And I know that some fond memories was made. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we went out to Cannon County, and Steve Sylvester, who is part of the Urban Hunting Trio, he owns a farm in Cannon County, and he guides a lot out there. So we used that for location for our show. And so I had taken his son, Shafin, out to hunt. And we got set up, and boy, daylight broke, and 3 gobblers. We had one in front of us, one on either side, gobbling at daylight. And so the one in front of us had disappeared, but the 2 on either side were still gobbling. And then the one on the right quit, and they still had the one on the left gobbling, and we thought the one on the right was coming in, but it ended up being a hen. And she came down to the decoys and walked on through. Well, he had to leave at 9, and so, you know, he was on a time crunch. It was about 8 o'clock, and I said, well, I knew the lay of the land. I said, well, if we're going to get to him, we're going to have to climb this mountain, because you know, you like gentle slopes. This was a steep slope. So we went around the logging road and climbed up this mountain, I like to call it, and got there and got about 50 yards from that bird. And it was over where the road kind of went over a ridge, and there was a little saddle. And so I got Shafin all set up, and I said, now look, when you know, it's something when you get things set up just right. In fact, let's get here, and we'll get to that point, we'll break, and we'll talk about it. Let's join this hunt.
Deer Brook Farms.
Good morning.
I bought you a Christmas one.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, we got it texted about 4:57 as we're almost through Laverne. Biscuits are done. Like, well.
Throw that on with that decoy, push that decoy in and center it up.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm getting strapped in.
Guys, look. I want you to see how good the Lord is. I forget things. I said, I am going to make sure I do not forget my keys for the four-wheeler. Do you see the keys in the four-wheeler? This is where they are. They have ridden for 45 miles. on the back of my truck.
There you go.
God is a good protector of sometimes idiots.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
For the finest in wild turkey and waterfowl choke tubes, it's Indian Creek Shooting Systems. Thousands of successful hunts and many still shot titles at IndianCreekSS.com.
We just shot this pattern with the Indian Creek 665 and the 6-shot Spectre shot. Said it's a 665 constriction, and that was a 30-yard target, and you can see there it just destroyed it.
Spectre shot, White Lightning turkey loads, the official turkey hunting ammunition of Eyes on the Outdoor.
Indian Creek Shooting Systems.
These are the actual wads that we picked up off the range after we just sighted in our turkey guns. And if you look at the choke tube, it's got 30 parallel ports. That porting is designed to retard the wad. So if you look at this wad real close, you can see 30 formed grooves in that wad. That's proof positive that is actually putting the brakes. When it comes through here, it's retarding that wad just so slightly. It gives you the patterns that you just seen from the other fellas' shotguns whenever they were sighting in.
Stuck up on the hill. Well, there's a saddle up here at the top of this ridge, but if we go up the road this way and hit the curve, call up there about 75 yards and see what he's actually, because I think he's hung up in the saddle. If we never get to the curve or go to the top of the hill and come over, I think we got a chance to get to him. It's worth a shot. You only got 45 minutes to an hour. down this road and get up to that hill. Right over that hill is a saddle.
So here we are, set up, and we're right here at the crest, and if you'll listen on camera, you'll hear me tell him. I'll say, look, he's going to come over that road right there at the top, and get your gun up and get ready. So I'm assuming that he's got his gun up. He's kind of to the side of me. I'm sitting here back of him, and I'm watching, and I'm calling and watching. I'm scratching the ground a little bit. I'm doing everything I can to sound like a hen turkey. And he's got his gun, and all of a sudden this huge gobbler pops up over the ridge. I mean, I could see everything but his feet.
I'm gonna be calling and scratching the leaves. Okay. If you see where you can shoot him, shoot him. Don't wait for anything. Just do what you gotta do, okay? All right. He's gonna come over that road right there, right over that hill, be able to shoot up that hill. Maybe two of them. There he is, there he is, there he is, there he is. Can you see him? Can you see him shooting? I see him. I'm like, shoot him now, shoot him. And he did not close the deal. And you know, it happens that way. Yeah. You know, sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't, but he didn't close the deal on that. And so the gobbler saw us, he went back over the ridge, and
well, Shaphan, it was a pretty interesting morning, man. We started out early, got gobblers everywhere, and you know, when they got hung up in that when they got hung up in that saddle up there, there just wasn't anything we could do. They weren't coming off that hill.
They were back and forth, but
what I was saying was that's why it was so important to know the lay of the land, because I knew that if we went up the road and got around on top of the ridge, that there was a hump, and we could come up over that hump. And those gobblers are down in that saddle with those hens, and both of them had hens with them. I mean, we had hens all morning clucking. Yeah. Man, watching that hen come across the top, you know, that was one of the things I felt comfortable with. Is, you know, you're calling and you're not scaring things off. Everything feels comfortable. The hen never got nervous, you know. No. And we were able to get right up on those gobblers, man. And when he stuck his head up over that ridge, I was like, wow. But I wasn't in a position to shoot. I was sitting behind you, and I'm like, man, if I shoot, that's not a safe thing. So I just left the gun alone, you know.
No, but we got some on film and had a fun time. Got our heart racing a little bit.
That's it. It was a good hunt this morning.
Good hunting. So I gotta bug out early, but you're gonna stick around for a little bit longer.
I'm gonna stick around for a little longer, but you know, I was gonna say that's why they call it hunting. You know, it's just exciting. You get out here, you get a chance to interact with the animals and get outdoors, and that's what it's all about.
That's
it's a
right.
Great morning in the woods.
Hey, Scott, that was some great footage right there. Man, tell us a little bit about what actually happened at the end of that hunt.
So I went back up the hill, and I went around over the ridge, and instead of going directly at the bird, I said, you know what, I'm gonna have to go away from him. So I went over the ridge, and I went about 500 yards behind the hill and came up on the backside from where I was at. And I felt like a mountain goat that day, pretty much, because boy, up and down those rocks, and you know how the hills are in Tennessee.
Right.
But let's join this hunt right here, and we'll see this on film.
Guys, oh goodness, let me tell you a story. I wish I had this shot on camera. I just killed one heck of a gobbler. Let me tell you about this. This is why I love turkey hunting. And I love what Ray I says about calling is everything. I hiked about 500 yards around on the backside of the hill. I came back over the hill and I set my decoys up right here. And I set off in the woods there about 20 yards so I could see the road coming up. And he was hung up down there about 250 yards. And I sat here for about 30 minutes. I'd call, I'd cluck, I'd purr, and he'd gobble. And so I'm like, well, he ain't moving. He's staying in the same spot. So I'm gonna start easing down the ridge. And I didn't know this real well. But over the last week, it's gotten green. And you can see how green it is around me. So it's not near the length of vision through the woods that you could see before. So I started slipping down that road, and about every 30 yards there's a turn. So I'd find me a tree and I'd ease up behind that tree, and then I'd kneel down and I'd look around. I'd be up, my eyes peeled the whole time, and I'd call and I'd hear him gobble down there.
Well, you know, I got in there and I was trying to get up on the bird, and so the woods had gotten a little bit more green. And so the 2 weeks before when I was in there, it was real open, but now it's real tight. And so I wasn't really exactly sure where the bird was. I knew he was about 75 to 100 yards off, so I started easing up. And I noticed, I don't know what it is, I guess it's just from the years of being in the woods, but I noticed a black stump down about 75 yards on the side of a hill. I don't know why my eye caught that black stump, but it caught this jet black stump, and I froze. And what it was the backside of the turkey's fan. And all of a sudden it just lets down. And it's that gobbler. Well, he hadn't seen me. I saw him before he saw me. So I just froze beside that tree. And so then he moves a little bit, and so I've got him located. So I eased up about another 20 yards without him seeing me and sat down beside a tree, and I just started calling. Now, he and I had a good little conversation going on. I'd cluck and purr a little bit, and he'd gobble. And I'd cluck and purr and talk back to him, and he'd gobble.
And he was down on the side of that hill. It was like he was trying to slip underneath me. And he relaxed his feathers, and I thought maybe he had seen me, but he didn't. I just had kind of raised up while I sat back down. And so I sat there for another 30 minutes, and I just kept talking to him. He'd gobble, I'd talk, I'd purr, I'd cluck, I'd yelp. I just got this little sequence I was doing, and he was working. And as long as he was talking to me, I was talking to him, and so we just started having us a little conversation.
But he was kind of coming around me. And so he ended up coming back up the hill, and I saw him one more time as he came back into the brush at the top of the hill, but at this time he's angling quartering in front of me. And so there's a little ridge where it comes down and crosses the road. Well, then I saw him pop up his head a few minutes later, but he was completely straightened up, completely erect.
And I actually saw him, and I wasn't sure if it was him or if it was a gobbler or a hen, because it wasn't fanned out. It was kind of standing straight up and then through the woods, and it was about 60 yards through the woods. And I'm looking, and this dude, I don't know if he saw me when I went to raise my gun up, because I'm thinking he's fixing to step out in the road, but he locked up. And so I've got my gun just about 6 inches off my legs, and so I just started kind of relaxing. It took me, seemed like 5 minutes to finally get that gun back down against my stomach and relaxed. And so then he stepped out, and when he went to step out, he kind of stuck his head out. Well, when he did, I thought, in my mind, I thought it's now or never, because he's coming down that road. He's going to hit that road at about 50 yards. And if I don't get a good shot on him, I'm not going to get him. That dude's going to see me down there. And I'm going to tell you, it's the longest turkey shot I ever made. But White Lightning in my grandpa's double-barrel Stevens shotgun has hammered some turkeys. And I'm going to tell you what, I put that full choke barrel on his neck. He stuck that neck straight out, and when I pulled the trigger, it was just a wad of wings and feathers and tail feathers, and he was flying. I'm like, wow, that's every bit of 50 to 52 yards. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, that's the farthest turkey I ever shot in my life, man. I'm usually letting them get up 20, 25, 30 yards, but I'm like, you know, you're reading the bird and you're watching the bird, and this dude is on alert, man. He ain't really sure because he can't see no turkeys nowhere, but he hears that hen. And I hammered this big boy. And look at here, man. Nice spurs on him. Nice tail feathers. Beautiful fan. I'm excited. First turkey of the year to shoot myself. I've guided on a couple already, but I had a chance this morning to put some time in myself, and I tell you what, it's what I like about turkey hunting. Getting out there, matching wits with a bird, calling is everything Ray I, and I appreciate the lessons, man. Fantastic. Great day in the woods. See you on the next edition of Urban Hunting.